to Reverend Butler. Thank you for that fine introduction. To the associate pastors of this church, to the officers, members, and friends of this great church,
Amen.
ladies and gentlemen.
Amen.
Again, as the pastor mentioned, I am James Franklin. I am from McCormick originally and now lives in Columbia, South Carolina. You know, I was a teacher. As a teacher, we were always told to prepare more than you need for your lesson, so that you don't run out of time and lesson at the same time that the period is ending, because the principal never wanted you to be standing there with nothing to teach and the children are there attentively listening to you. So if I over-prepared, you'll understand. It's that old teacher's thing that I've had in my life. I'd like to mention a couple of things. With the permission of the pastor, he has consented that I could leave one of these calendars for every young person in the church and one of these booklets for every young person in the church. These are very remarkable items that the youth of this church and the youth all over the state of South Carolina could learn from and appreciate. So I thank the pastor for allowing me to do that. Those will be given to the youth of this church before the service is over.
Amen.
Now, you know, this is not going to be a celebratory talk today.
All right.
It's not a good feeling talk today.
All right.
You may be upset by some of the things that I may say.
Amen.
And I do apologize for that, but this is serious business when it comes to my people, you all. Very serious. So I'm going to mention some things that may stand the hair on your head at times. And the national theme for this year's Black History Month is Black Resistance. Black Resistance. That's the national theme.
Amen.
Now I'll be talking about the past, the present, and hopefully looking at the future.
All right.
And I do have quite a few things in here I want to say to all of us, including myself, so that we can make life better for ourselves and those whom we love. So let me begin. Before we were slaves, we were kings and queens in Africa, the birthplace of civilization.
Amen.
African Americans have resisted historic and ongoing oppression in all forms, especially the racial terrorism of lynchings, inhuman treatment through involuntary servitude, Jim Crow, and police brutality. These resistance efforts started long ago in the United States. Black slaves resisted when they took over the slave ship Amistad. You young people should know the history and the story of the slave ship Amistad. This is when the slaves took over the ship and killed some of their captors and steered the ship toward Connecticut.
Amen.
Although imprisoned for the revolt, this demonstration of resistance truly represented the civil rights song. And before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave. Denmark Vesey, a black man, resisted slavery when he organized a plot to gain the freedom of slaves. He was caught and hanged in Charleston. Nat Turner, a black man, resisted slavery when he organized a slave revolt in Virginia. He was caught and hanged. John Brown, a white abolitionist, resisted slavery when he led a raid on Harper's Ferry in Virginia to steal weapons to arm us slave people, because he wanted us to win our freedom by fighting the South. He was caught and hanged. A song, John Brown's Body, about his life became a rallying cry among the Union troops during the Civil War. We're talking about black resistance, our national theme. 190,000 black folks, black men and boys, fought in the Civil War for our freedom. they fought against the Confederacy. 190,000 of us were in that fight. Now that's amazing when you think about it.
Amen.
Back then, 190,000 black folks armed, fighting for their freedom.
Amen.
Black resistance continued even after Civil War. Black citizens armed themselves against murderous white mobs in Memphis, Tennessee in 1892, in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1900, and in Rosewood, Florida in 1923. We're talking about black resistance, resistance to things that do us wrong. One of the challenges of the freed Negro was the issue of morality, the teachings of right from wrong. Therefore, the black church stepped in. From the Brush Harbor, you young people probably never heard of the Brush Harbor, and you may have. You older folks should know about the Brush Harbor and what our folks went through. To frame the buildings like this one, the black church stepped forward. The church decided to march to Zion. The black church resisted depravity, especially among our young people, by creating the Sunday school. Sunday school. The black Sunday school spread throughout the South. Sanctuary church was not held every Sunday, but what was held every Sunday? Sunday school. The Sunday school was held every Sunday to resist the immorality among our black youth. The black church has provided a place for us to spread love, and to make a joyful noise unto the Lord.
Amen.
The black church provided a meeting place for us to organize and to make plans for resistance against inequality. The black church offered a sanctuary for the protests and inspired black folks to sing with determination, victory in Jesus.
Amen.
The black church and the black clergy have always been at the forefront of black protests and demonstrations. This meeting place, the black church, then became a target place for hateful white people to burn, and a place for them to bomb little black children as they worship in Birmingham, Alabama.
Amen.
When white institutions of higher learning would not admit black students, the black church stepped up and said that we as a church will educate our children. We as a church will have schools to educate our black children. And like that, what happened for us, we then learned names like Howard University, Hampton Institute, Tuskegee Institute, Fisk University, Meharry Medical College, Allen University, Benedict College, Payne College, Morehouse College, Spelman College, Kaufman University, Voorhees College, Morris College, Talladega College, and Johnson C. Smith, to name a few. There were over 100 colleges and universities that were established to educate us, to educate our people, when they were not allowed to be educated anywhere else.
Amen.
The black church also provided the schools that many of us went to. Many of you may have gone to some of these old black schools back in the day because you had no place else to go.
Amen.
The black church continues to survive today because we have come this far
Amen.
by faith.
Amen.
Its continued survival, though, is dependent upon Christian ambassadors for Christ who will depart from this sanctuary, go beyond this sanctuary, and go out and draw persons back to the church. Many of our church buildings also need maintenance and upkeep. But the black church continues to resist oppression, but it has many more bridges to cross.
Amen.
It was Rosa Parks who resisted inequality when she would not give up her seat to a white person on a public bus in Montgomery, Alabama. This led to part 2 of the modern civil rights movement. Part 1 was the legal expertise given by a team of lawyers led by Thurgood Marshall, which led to the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, to outlaw racial segregation in public schools. Mrs. Parks' decision led a movement never before faced by the United States. A young preacher named Martin Luther King Jr. showed what a mighty God we serve. He and his band of followers led to the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and to the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act.
Amen.
His band of followers included thousands of students from college campuses all over the South who resisted inequality by peacefully demonstrating in cities and towns. This resistance included sit-ins, walkouts, boycotts, and marches. His band of followers also included whites and blacks, some of whom gave the ultimate sacrifice, including Dr. King.
Amen.
They knew that they were marching to Zion.
Amen.
I was a poor boy from McCormick, South Carolina. My parents sent me to Orangeburg, but I was like hundreds of other students who were arrested and jailed for civil rights demonstrations. I spent 10 days at the State Department of Corrections in Columbia. After getting out of jail, we demonstrated in Columbia and in Washington, D.C. Then came the students being killed at Jackson State and at South Carolina State, known as the Orangeburg Massacre. Oftentimes, ladies and gentlemen, in the struggle for human rights, there are prices to pay.
Amen.
We need to resist the plans to eliminate portions of black history. State legislatures want to cut out certain portions of our history.
Yeah.
They want to sanitize our history so that the horrors of our history won't make their students feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They don't want students to feel guilty or to become depressed with the knowledge of our history.
Yeah. Right.
The state of Florida is blocking the teaching of African American history as an advanced placement course in its high schools, even though they have advanced placement courses for other races.
Yeah. Right.
We need to resist these efforts to sanitize our history. Is this not censorship?
Amen.
Slavery happened. Africans were brought over with their bodies chained to the hull of ships. Africans were submitted to hostile environments. Slaves were bought and sold. Slave families were separated. If it happened, it happened.
Amen.
Slaves were considered as property. Slaves had no rights. You can't dress up history.
Amen.
Numerous slaves were hung and their bodies burned. If it happened, it happened.
Yeah.
There were numerous horrors of slavery, and I don't have time to list them all. But what about after slavery? Then came Jim Crow and the rise of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
Blacks were denied the right to vote. Segregation existed everywhere. Poverty was pervasive in the black community. Sharecropping was another way to keep former slaves on the farm. The great migration of blacks to the north occurred in order to find decent jobs. Schools were not equal, and the Black Wall Street of East St. Louis, you've heard the story, they burned that town to the ground, killing up to 300 black people, destroying their schools and homes. Thousands and thousands of homes were destroyed. All of the businesses were destroyed. The great hotel was destroyed. But you know, lynchings still continued into the 20th century, even after all of what happened in East St. Louis.
Amen.
Truly, the storms of life for black folks was really raging.
Amen.
When President Obama was president, he said, "The vestiges of slavery and Jim Crow are still with us." We must remember that black folks' lives don't matter to a lot of people. Ever since the United States Supreme Court ruled in 1857 that black people were not citizens and amounted to being what part of a man? What part? 3/5 of a man. You don't remember the story? We were considered as 3/5 of a white man. You don't remember that story? 3/5. Less than human. That was a Supreme Court decision. Your Supreme Court. We have watched this on TV in the killings of Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Eric Garner, and most recently, Tyree Nichols. And what about the Mother Emanuel Church killings? And what about the Buffalo supermarket killings. You think folks feel that black life matters?
No.
Now let's talk about us as a family for a few minutes and get real on us.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right.
We need to resist ignorance and irresponsibility. Many of our black children today show no respect for their own race.
Amen.
Many of our black children today will probably lace their language with profanity before they learn the parts of speech. The black child today stands a better chance of going to prison than going to college.
All right.
Many of our black children today will probably acquire a weapon before they acquire a good book.
All right.
Many of our black children today will probably receive a game initiation before they receive a high school diploma.
All right.
Many of our black children today will be tempted to use an illegal drug before they get to middle school. We need to teach our black kids about making the proper choices, choosing what is right and just under God. We need to teach them that, and I'm sure you do a good job of that, but we need to do more. A lot of our black kids, before they enter kindergarten, may have to be resisting a drug. You know that? Black kids on the street being tempted to use a drug. We need to teach our children how to resist using drugs and how to resist peer pressure. You know, we need to teach our children not with a little excitement, but the philosophers tell us that we need to teach our black kids with relentless determination. Relentless determination. We need to supervise and engage our children from the cradle until they complete high school. We need to teach them responsibility and the importance of hard work before they enter first grade. We need to expect our children to excel in the academics.
Amen.
According to Dr. Lewis Gates, we must teach our children that education is the common denominator. He also said that education and hard work are the keys to a productive future. We need to resist ignorance and irresponsibility.
Amen.
In a 2021 study by Professor Luke Wood of San Diego State University, black boys are, listen, 522% more likely to be suspended in kindergarten through third grade than white kids.
Amen.
The black child must be taught responsibility. Again, I can't overemphasize enough, we need to take care of the children. We need to put our arms around our children, all children, whether you birth those children or not. If they're black, they need you. They need you. We must also resist the poor quality of education which is given to the black child. As we know, all black kids are going to college. We must demand that our schools teach marketable skills. A skill that can get you a good job, or a skill which you can use to start your own business. We used to do that. When I worked at the State Department of Education in Columbia back in the day, all high schools in South Carolina were required to teach courses such as electricity, plumbing, auto mechanics, auto body repair, cosmetology, practical nursing, carpentry, welding, air conditioning, and refrigeration, and brick masonry.
Amen.
Required to do that. But folks, I don't want to get political, but the other group took over, phased those programs out, because as black kids were being taught all of these skills, because they were able to perform these skills, they took away the business of some of your white brothers and sisters.
Amen.
They didn't like that. You got to teach these kids skills. For those black kids who do not plan to go to college with one or more of these skills, they were job ready, either for themselves or for somebody else.
Yeah.
Today, very few high schools have this training. Without any skills, many of our high school graduates leave high school, can't get a job, become frustrated, and enter a life of crime and illegal drug use. That's a sad commentary for our kids. The following statistics, though, bear this out. Listen to me. Blacks make up about 12% of the U.S. population, but 33% of the U.S. prison population. This is within a criminal justice system that is not often fair to us as black folks anyway. According to the Sentencing Project, over half of the prisoners in South Carolina prisons are black. That is terrible. Over half of the prisoners in this state are black. These are people who are taken out of the system. They can't vote, they can't register, they can't do any of those kinds of things that we need for them to do. They're in jail. Of youth and juvenile facilities in the United States, 42% are black boys and 35% are black girls. These are kids in juvenile facilities. Remember, we make up 12%, but 35%, 42%. I mean, these percentages should scare all of us in terms of where our kids are in the criminal justice system. According to this, Dr. Marion Wright Edelman said, "The cradle to prison trend is victimizing our children of color." She also said that we cannot have slavery reinstituted in America by putting our folks in prison.
Amen.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I know this is not exciting and this is not something we have joy in, but we must also resist voter suppression.
Amen.
Voter suppression has become the order of the day in many states. Many of the states are limiting early voting locations, reducing voting hours, limiting voting by mail, changing voter locations without proper notification, striking names from voter registration rolls, expanding ID requirements, and restricting water and food to be given to persons who've been in line for hours.
All of that.
That is terrible, but that's what they're doing.
Amen.
Now, of equal importance, back to us, we must resist voter apathy among us.
Yes. Amen.
We must resist voter apathy. We must. Too many of us don't register.
Say that.
Too many of us don't vote. In my hometown of McCormick, I'm sorry, Reverend Butler. In my homtown of McCormick, 2 years ago, we had a black state senator. We don't have that today. Our senator is white. 6 months ago, we had a black state representative. 6 months ago, Representative Parks. We don't have that today. Now that representative is white. Too many people have died, too many people have cried, too many people have been beaten in jail for a single one of us, not to register and vote. It's like we've been in a deep sleep. We need to wake up. We can't let history repeat itself. We need to resist the efforts of many in South Carolina who are trying to resegregate South Carolina public schools. Trying to resegregate it. They'll do everything they can to get us back to where we belong and where their kids belong.
Amen.
There is proposed legislation in the General Assembly and discussions within that body which would allow public tax dollars to be used to support public schools. The governor tried to give public dollars to private schools during the COVID crisis, but the courts intervened. We must vote against any legislation that is coming our way that has to do with money going to private schools. Your tax dollars going to private schools, because you know what that does. They claim it's fair and equal, but anyway, they'll do anything to make you feel that what they're proposing is right. Remember, the insurrectionists said that they were following the orders of President Donald Trump.
They were.
Donald Trump has announced that he is running again for president of the United States. Now, that doesn't stir you up to register and vote. Nothing will. Nothing will. We must also resist self-hatred. Getting back to us again. When I was a child, we had to worry about the man across the tracks. Today, we have to worry about the man next door. In a study by Dr. A.F. Poussaint for homicides, 80 to 90% of the cases, the black victim was killed by another black person. 80 to 90% of the homicides, the black person was killed by another black person. Sad. This is amazing. Why would 5 black police officers brutally murder a single helpless black man in Memphis, Tennessee? Why? Why earlier this week, one black woman shot another black woman in the head in a Kroger parking lot. What a shame. She died. Black on black crime is epidemic. We put so little value on our own people. We talk about it takes a village to raise a child, but we don't protect black life. Another thing, we don't have many black-owned businesses today because black folks don't patronize their own race. Today, white America and Indian America have businesses located in the black community. They come in, operate their businesses, and return to their communities with our black dollars. There's something wrong with that. But that's us. We cause that. We also need to resist another thing, domestic violence. Listen, 58.3% of black women have expressed domestic violence, while only 41% of white women. More black women are getting beaten up, brutalized, and killed by us than white victims are. Now, there's something wrong with that. We're only 12% of the population. Why are you beating up your women? And women, why are you beating up your men? What's wrong with that? Why is there fighting and shooting and cutting within our own families? What's wrong with that? How do we let that happen? We need to resist self-hatred. Now, won't be much longer. Then I was a teacher. Listen, we have had to resist the notion that black people are intellectually inferior to white folks.
Amen.
If we were intellectually inferior, why was a white man afraid to allow us to learn how to read? If we were intellectually inferior, why would the white man want our black women to raise their children? If we were intellectually inferior, why would the white man pick Tuskegee Airmen to fly airplanes to protect their airmen during World War II? If we were intellectually inferior, why would the white man establish the Buffalo Soldiers Cavalry to maintain order in the West? If we were intellectually inferior, why did the white man pick 3 black women to be the brains to launch astronaut John Glenn successfully into space and then to achieve the space of the Earth? Now, here are some black intellectuals whom I would put up against any white man. Listen, Dr. George Washington Carver, scientist and developer of numerous products which we use today. Dr. Charles Drew, surgeon and medical researcher who developed the blood bank in order to preserve blood. Donna Auguste, scientist and developer of sentences and data science. Katherine Johnson, a mathematician who developed calculations for orbital mechanics in space. Louis Latimer, a scientist and inventor who helped to develop the telephone, the carbon filament, the light bulb, and the water closet, which was the forerunner of the air conditioner. Elijah McCoy, engineer who developed a lubrication system for steam engines and the operation of railroads, receiving over 60 patents during his lifetime. And what about Garrett A. Morgan, inventor who developed a smoke hood which made it safe for construction engineers to build tunnels and to rescue trapped miners, and also he constructed sewing machines and traffic lights. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, surgeon who performed the first successful open heart operation. Dr. Ben Carson, neurosurgeon who led a team of surgeons in the first known separation of conjoined twins who were joined at the head. And scientist Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, an astrophysicist who populated science and science research with the study of space. That's just to name a few. There were thousands of others. While there have been much resistance to the progress of African Americans, as black folks, we must teach our children to continue to have a thirst for knowledge. Whatever constructive field that they may choose, we must promote that their efforts be toward the pursuit of excellence in that field. The academics for children must become our mission for excellence. While we applaud the efforts of Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts for being the quarterbacks for the two teams in the Super Bowl, with Patrick being the winning quarterback. While we applaud LeBron James for being the highest scorer in professional basketball. And while we applaud Don Staley for being the most successful women's college basketball coach,
Amen.
remember, less than 1% of our athletes will make a living playing sports.
Yeah.
The key to continued success of the African American continues to be vocations, that's a skill,
Yeah.
and academics. Remember Booker T. Washington? His whole premise about starting education for blacks in the South was about skills, vocations, using the hands. He once said there's just as much dignity in tilling the fields as there is in writing a poem, to get people to understand that we needed to learn skills to make it in life. Again, black resistance is the theme for this year's Black History program. To be resistant, we must be active and involved. We must meet, we must organize, we must plan, we must do this regularly. No longer can we go home and let somebody else worry about the challenges facing African Americans. We can celebrate. We must celebrate. We love our past. We appreciate our past. But we must plan for our future. We must continue to resist any and all efforts to restrict the success of our people in the United States. Don't let the sacrifices of 190,000 slaves and former slaves who fought for our freedom be in vain. Like so, don't forget the countless number of white soldiers who fought for us, many of whom died for us during the Civil War. Don't let their efforts be in vain either. Don't let the sacrifices of thousands of civil rights workers, blacks and whites, many of whom died in the struggle, be in vain. Always remember that freedom is not what? Freedom. O Son of Man, cried George Matheson, whenever I doubt of life, I think of thee. I came to Jesus and I drank of that life-giving stream. My thirst was quenched, my soul revived, and now I live in Jesus. We must live in Jesus. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.